Hello and welcome back to Bumblebee Facebook, my beauticians and historians alike. And I hope you're ready because today's video is all about the 10 repulsive hygiene practices women faced in ancient China. So we are kicking off the list with the importance of smell, which, I mean, is hygiene 101, and I dare say it was more important here than anywhere else in the world at the time. Body odor, they believed, was a sign of barbarianism, and so the wealthy would go to great lengths to keep it off. Women of all classes could be found with aromatic bags of herbs or florals attached to their waists, and in those times, so much of Chinese nobles' paychecks went towards hygiene that they actually called it a subsidy for clothing and hair washing. For the poor, however, though, the tricks weren't as available. Herbs could be super pricey and washing less accessible, and so they resorted to some more desperate options. One ancient Chinese doctor, for example, recommended that every person should wash their armpits with urine once a year. And then over in the north area of China, their trick was that people would go the whole winter without bathing, fearing that touching water in the cold will make you sick. Alright, so usually when ancient Chinese beauty or hygiene comes up, so does this next segment, it's the lotus feet. So a small foot in China was no different from a tiny waist in Victorian England and represented the height of female refinement. Foot binding was easily the worst though. Its origins in China are unknown, but mostly it refers back to a story of a 10th century court dancer named Yan Yang who bound her feet in the shape of a new moon to dance for her beloved emperor, but it caused all the other jealous concubines to try and do the same. Foot binding began incredibly early for girls, while their bodies were still developing and easily malleable. The process required her feet to be bandaged tighter and tighter and broken as she was growing, causing the bones in her feet to crush inward and the sole to bend down to meet the toes, and then toes to bend completely under the foot. These wrappings were briefly removed every 2 days to prevent blood and pus from infecting the foot, and sometimes excess flesh was cut away or encouraged to rot. Then, because the process isn't brutal enough, the size of the girl's foot translated into its own form of currency. The most desirable of brides possessed a 3-inch foot known as the golden lotus, and that tiny foot could carry you into a millionaire's arms. A 4-inch foot, a silver lotus, was respectable, but scoff. Feet 5 inches or longer, you are an iron lotus, so say goodbye to your marriage prospects, Bigfoot. Next up is the ancient sanitary napkin. So in ancient China, women dealt with their periods by using what were essentially tiny little sandbags. They would put sand into washed silk or cloth and then make sure it was tightly bound. Then they would use it as a pad instead of inserting. Somehow. I'm not sure how well that would stay there. Once the sand was fully saturated, they'd dump it out, and then after rinsing and washing the cloth, they'd fill it with clean sand and repeat until their periods are over. And with menstruation comes contraceptives, which was liquid murk. Yeah, specifically a mixture of oil and murk called quicksilver. The woman was supposed to drink this mixture on an empty stomach to avoid unwanted pregnancies. Murk is toxic to the body, as we now know, and with repeated ingestion, murk can actually change a person's bone marrow, cause organ failure, throat ruptures, or lead to infertility, and that may be why the ancient Chinese considered it an effective method of birth control. And on the same wavelength, next is cinnabar. So, ancient civilizations from Italy, Greece, Spain, China, South America, they all utilize the fantastically vibrant red of cinnabar, which is an ore of solid murk, in their cosmetics and their body rituals, believing it to be a cleaning powder. The volcanic mineral could easily be ground up into that fine powder and mixed with other adhesive ingredients that women wore as early rouge on the apples of their cheeks or used as a lotion for smoother skin. But it was only getting smoother because it was melting layers of it away, slowly and slowly. And however, it can even eventually lead to damaging the nervous system and muscular system. But does your stomach hurt hearing that yet? It will after you hear about the lice. It may not be particularly surprising that ancient China was infested with lice. Everyone was. Everywhere. All the time. Lice was so widespread in early China, doctors used them to make diagnosis. Example, if there's lice crawling all over the patient's body, an early Chinese medical document says he'll survive. If the lice are scrambling off his body, like rats fleeing a sinking ship, he'll probably be dead tomorrow. The poor were so used to being covered in lice that many would compulsively pick them off their hair and just built the habit of eating them instead of flicking them since they'll just come back. This happened so much that they had remedies to help people who ate too much of their own lice. They would be fed ashes and boiled water from old combs, and the next time you visited the bathrooms the doctors promised you should pass a belly full of lice. Got lice breath? Salt and vinegar will help, so it's next up. Ancient China's solutions were no less effective than modern toothpaste, albeit they may not have tasted very good. During the Wei, Jin, and Sui and Tang dynasties, people used to dip their finger in salt and then tea, wine, vinegar, something like that to wipe their teeth teeth and then rinse their mouth. And salt is actually an excellent whitener. According to the essential recipes for emergent use worth 1,000 gold, written by the famous Chinese doctor Sun Miao, after getting up every morning, it's important to put some salt in your mouth and hold it there for a while with warm water. This will make your teeth firm. Later, the ancient Chinese no longer used salt to clean their teeth because they, by then, had discovered an exclusive recipe, tooth powder, and they'd figured out toothbrushes too. So this tooth powder was made by traditional Chinese medicines such as pork teeth, saponin, ginger, asarum, lotus leaf, green salt, and etc. Such tooth powder not only cleaned and maintained the teeth, but also removed moisture and heat from the body. Speaking of rubbing yourself with abrasive materials, this next segment is about abrasive lotions. So, not normally what you want your lotion to be, but hear them out. So, the Compendium of Materia Medica, the Codex of Traditional Chinese Medicine, records a large number of pharmaceutical formulas with stone shards or dust in them. For instance, to brighten skin, a mixture of plum, pear, cherry, candy tuft, white lotus, red lotus, inula flowers, and pepper, peach, papaya flowers, and aloes and cloves are listed, but it also mentions 100 grams of pearl and jade crumbs and 700 grams of ground soybean powder. This lotion results would be very brightening and very smoothing, but the abrasive stones would actually embed into the pores and actually cause more harm than good, if not just fill your face with microabrasions, but hey, it may have worked. Bath beans are next up, and no, not bean baths like Gene and Bob's Burgers. Bath beans were bar-shaped products consisting of soybean powder, medicinal herbs, and fragrances, often used from the Wei dynasty to the Southern dynasty. Since soy has a similar chemical structure to estrogen, these bean-shaped pucks could pack a punch in the way of improving female hormones. In supplement to the formulas of 1,000 golds worth, the traditional Chinese medicine doctrine that we had actually previously mentioned, dozens of potential ingredients are listed to make these bath beans, one of them being pig pancreas. Don't worry, it wasn't forever. The manufacturing technique of soap matured later on, and plant ash replaced the soybean paste, and instead of pig pancreas, it was just pig fat instead. And last up, the most reviling, repulsive, disgusting of all ancient Chinese hygiene was wiping. Okay, so this is obviously not to us, but use perspective. So ancient Chinese toilet paper started the same way everyone else's did. They used leaves, they used moss, they used twigs and stones. But they were the first to invent actual toilet paper, and as far as we know, it was around the year 600 or before. But by 1393, the imperial court ordered more than 720,000 sheets in a single year. The used leftovers gathered on a mound so massive that people called it the Elephant Mountain. The paper first started in the Han Dynasty as a special tool called the chuige, so that's Chuugia in case I'm saying it wrong, which was made by cutting bamboo slices into thin flat strips slightly wide with a rounded edge. That eventually gave way to straw paper in the Yuan Dynasty, and then rice paper by the Ming and the Qing dynasties. The wiping product was in the hands of the people, whether they were poor or whether they were rich. But while they were wiping, well, Europeans weren't even washing. The idea of anything short of a communal poop stick in a bucket was abhorrent to a lot of other places. So as China had invaders and visitors alike, the people learned more and more that outside their empire, people weren't wipers, and they were getting judged for it pretty bad. An Arabic traveler who visited China saw them use it firsthand and wrote about it in heavy disgust, saying they are not careful about cleanliness, they do not wash themselves with water when they have done their necessities, but only wipe themselves with paper. Because to the other countries of the ancient world, using toilet paper was the most disgusting thing of all. And that is the end of another Bumblebee exclusive. I sure hope you enjoyed. Take time to like, share, and of course comment down below.